My name is Harriet Langford, and I'm 70 years old, living in the charming city of Savannah, Georgia. Life has been a quiet river for me ever since my husband passed away 10 years ago. I was a retired art teacher, and for decades, my days revolved around colors, canvases, and students who would come to my classroom looking for guidance, not knowing that their teacher had also spent a lifetime guiding her own family. I remember the mornings when sunlight streamed through the big oak trees lining my street, casting shadows on the cobblestone paths. Those mornings felt like a gentle reminder that life goes on, even when grief hangs heavily in your chest. I would sit with my coffee, staring at the photographs on my walls, pictures of Victor and Clara as toddlers, splashing in the beach house pool, laughing with carefree innocence, my husband's warm smile watching over them. But life has a way of testing even the strongest hearts. I thought I had prepared for every storm, every twist. I had survived raising my children, losing my partner, and living alone in a house filled with memories that sometimes felt like ghosts. Yet, I never imagined that a single phone call could make my heart stop and my world collapse around me. That evening, my life was about to change forever. The truth is, when you live long enough, you realize how fragile trust can be. People you love the most, people you've given everything to, can sometimes hurt you in ways you never expected. And it's in those moments, when betrayal knocks at your door, that you truly understand who you are and what you're made of. I still remember gripping my coffee cup that evening, hands trembling, wondering if the world I had built with love and patience was about to crumble. But I also remember a quiet voice inside me saying, "Harriet, you have survived storms before. You can survive this too." That voice would be my anchor in the days to come. I have 2 children, and I have loved them with every fiber of my being. My eldest, Victor, is 37 years old, a sharp and ambitious financial consultant based in Miami. From a young age, Victor had that fire in his eyes, a hunger for success, a determination to prove himself. I admired him, yes, but as a mother, I also worried. Ambition, if left unchecked, can sometimes blind a person to the feelings of those around them. Then there's Clara, 34 years old, my sweet, empathetic daughter who lives in Tampa. Clara has always been the one to sense emotions in a room, the one to notice when someone is hurting. She became a yoga instructor, a career built on patience and mindfulness. She was my comfort, my sounding board, the child who could calm the storms of my heart with a single hug. Raising Victor and Clara was not without its struggles. There were sleepless nights when they were babies, illnesses, school worries, and teenage rebellions. But through it all, I gave them love unconditionally. I believed that my guidance, my sacrifices, and my support would be enough to shield them from the harsh edges of life. I imagined a future where we would grow old together, celebrating birthdays and anniversaries, sharing stories on quiet evenings. I pictured Victor's laughter filling the hallways, Clara's gentle voice offering comfort during my twilight years. These were not just dreams. They were my expectations, built on decades of love and care. I never questioned their loyalty. In my heart, I believed that a mother's love is always returned, that children understand the depth of sacrifices made for them. But life, as it often does, had a lesson for me, a lesson that would shake the foundation of everything I thought I knew about family. The beach house on Tybee Island was more than just a home. It was a sanctuary, a piece of my husband's legacy, a place where memories lived in every corner. He had built it with his hands, pouring love into every nail, every plank, every sunlit window. The smell of salt water mixed with sand and old wood, and that scent alone could transport me back to the happiest moments of my life. Victor and Clara grew up there, their laughter bouncing off the walls. Summer days were spent running along the shore, building sandcastles and collecting seashells. Winter nights were quiet, filled with the crackling of the fireplace and stories told under the glow of soft lamps. Every birthday, every Christmas, every family gathering happened in that house. Even after my husband passed, it remained my refuge, a place where I could close my eyes and feel the presence of my family and him. It was my belief that a home holds memories, and memories are priceless. That belief was what gave the house its weight in my heart. Selling it would feel like erasing years of love, laughter, and life lessons. I never imagined that the very people I trusted the most would make that choice for me, without asking, without consulting, without a thought to the feelings tied to those walls. Walking through the rooms, touching the old wooden banister, I could almost hear the echoes of Victor and Clara's childhood. It was as if the house itself remembered, and I felt an ache in my chest, knowing that soon those echoes would belong to strangers. It was a warm, humid evening when Victor called. I was organizing my art supplies, the smell of oil paints and turpentine filling the small studio I had converted in the living room. The phone rang, piercing the quiet. "Mum," Victor said, "we're going tomorrow." I sold the beach house. The words didn't make sense at first. My hand froze mid-stroke on a canvas. "You sold it?" My voice trembled, disbelief hanging heavy between us. "It's for the best," he said casually, as though he were talking about a business decision, not a lifetime of memories. I felt a jolt of panic, then a wave of disbelief. How could the person I raised, who shared my home, my love, my sacrifices, make such a decision without so much as a conversation? The walls seemed to close in, the air grew heavy, and the vibrant sunset outside felt cruelly bright. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dim light of my bedroom, staring at the framed photographs, Victor and Clara building sandcastles, my husband laughing at them, all frozen smiles that now felt like ghosts of the past. I whispered to myself, how could they do this? How could they not understand what this house meant to me? The following morning, I didn't know how to face the day. My heart felt raw, and every memory of the house seemed to throb with pain. Clara arrived unexpectedly, sensing something was wrong. She walked in, her eyes wide with worry. "Mum." "I didn't know," she said softly. "Neither did I whispered, voice breaking. Tears rolled down my cheeks. For a long moment we just sat together, holding hands, sharing the weight of disbelief. The house that once symbolized our unity had now become a reminder of fragility. I wanted to scream, to beg, to question. But words failed me. The emotional fallout was heavy. Memories that once brought joy now carried an ache, a sense of loss that I wasn't sure I could mend. My heart felt betrayed, not by a stranger, but by the very children I had nurtured, the ones I had trusted above all else. That day, I realized something fundamental. Betrayal doesn't always come with anger or malice. Sometimes it comes wrapped in necessity, ignorance, or desperation, and even then, it can cut deeper than knives. The days ahead would challenge my strength, my patience, and my capacity to forgive. The morning after the shocking phone call, Clara drove 3 hours from Tampa to Savannah. She arrived at my doorstep, carrying her yoga mat in one hand and an air of quiet concern surrounding her. Even before she knocked, I could sense her worry. Her face, always so gentle and understanding, was marked with unease, her eyes reflecting the emotional storm I was struggling to contain. "Mum, I had no idea," she said, stepping inside. Her voice trembled, revealing both fear and sadness. I hugged her tightly, feeling her warmth, realizing that at least someone in my family still understood the weight of what had happened. We sat on the porch together, sipping lukewarm tea as the morning sun slowly rose over the city. Clara spoke softly. "Mum, I know this house meant everything to you. It still does." Her words were simple, but carried the gravity of empathy I had longed for. I wanted to explain the depth of my heartbreak, the lifetime of memories attached to the beach house, but words failed me. Instead, we shared silence. In that silence, though, there was connection, a reminder that even in moments of betrayal, love could persist. Clara gently suggested we walk along the old oak-lined streets of Savannah, hoping fresh air might bring clarity. As we walked, I recounted stories of my late husband building the house, of Victor and Clara as children laughing in the sand, of the quiet nights we had spent as a family. She listened intently, never interrupting, never questioning, just absorbing the pain that I could not yet voice fully. Her presence reminded me that family is more than a single act of betrayal. She became my anchor that morning, a soft reminder that even when one branch of trust cracks, others remain strong, holding you upright. For the first time in hours, I felt a spark of hope that I could navigate this storm with my dignity intact. I knew I couldn't live in the shadow of unanswered questions forever. That afternoon, I called Victor. The phone rang several times before he picked up. "Mom," he said cautiously, as though he anticipated the storm coming from the other end. "Victor," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "Why didn't you ask me first? Why didn't you even discuss it?" There was a pause, then a casual shrug I could hear even over the phone. "It was a business decision, Mom. I needed the money." I felt my chest tighten. My own child, raised with my love and care, had reduced a lifetime of memories, a home built with devotion, to a mere financial transaction. Anger surged through me, followed by deep sorrow. I wanted to scream, to make him understand the magnitude of his choice, but instead, I took a breath. I realized that shouting would not recover what was lost. I tried to explain the emotional cost, the years embedded in those walls, the laughter and tears that made that house sacred. Victor listened, but I could tell he heard only a fraction. His mind was already elsewhere, tangled in bills and numbers, blind to the treasure he had discarded. Even in that confrontation, I discovered something vital. Strength is not in the volume of your voice, but in the steadiness of your heart. I hung up with a heavy weight on my chest, but with a quiet resolve forming inside me. A few days later, I discovered the hidden truth. Victor had been struggling financially for years, facing mounting debts that threatened his career and reputation. The beach house, to him, had become a lifeline, a quick solution to a problem he had not dared share with us. Learning this truth softened the edges of my anger, but it did not erase the pain. I felt torn between sorrow for his struggles and the sting of betrayal. I realized that people we love most can hurt us unintentionally, driven by desperation, fear, or pride. Walking along the riverfront in Savannah, I pondered the fragile nature of trust. Memories that once brought warmth now carried weighty shadows. I remembered Victor as a child, running through the sand with Clara, their laughter echoing in my ears. That innocence contrasted sharply with the man he had become, forced into choices he could not fully articulate. Even in the quiet of reflection, I felt the ache of understanding that love does not always prevent mistakes, nor does it shield us from heartbreak. Yet, it also offered a path forward: empathy. The days that followed were heavy. I wandered through my home, touching the walls that once contained joy, feeling the absence of a future I had envisioned for my family. Sleep eluded me, replaced by restless nights where memories played in endless loops. I questioned my choices as a mother, wondering if my guidance had been enough. Could I have prevented this? Or was this simply the inevitable consequence of human flaws? The realization that betrayal can come from those you love most struck deeper than any external threat. Yet amid the sorrow, I found clarity. Anger, though natural, would not restore the past. Blame, though justified, would not heal the heart. In that quiet torment, I recognized that my strength lay in what I chose to do next, not in what had been taken from me. After long reflection, I made a decisive choice. I sold my collection of antique paintings, cherished works accumulated over decades, something that had always symbolized my personal passion and joy. With that money, I purchased a small, oceanfront cottage nearby, modest yet serene, a sanctuary I could truly call my own. It was a moment of reclamation. For the first time in days, I felt control returning, a quiet empowerment. I understood that peace and ownership of one's life cannot be dictated by others' actions. They must be claimed and defended. The cottage, humble but full of light, became a place of healing. I filled it with memories of the past, yes, but also with hope for a future defined not by betrayal, but by resilience and self-respect. The first morning in my new oceanfront cottage, I woke to the sound of waves gently lapping the shore, a soft whisper that seemed to greet me personally. The modest space, smaller than the grand beach house I had lost, radiated a warmth and calm that my heart had longed for. Sunlight poured through the windows, highlighting the fresh paint and the cozy furnishings I had carefully chosen. It was simple, yes, but it was alive with possibility. I walked barefoot across the wooden floors, feeling the grain beneath my feet, a grounding sensation that reminded me that life still had texture, still had substance. Outside, the sea stretched endlessly, its rhythm steady and comforting. I realized in that moment that peace isn't measured by size, opulence, or memories built by others. It is measured by the serenity we allow ourselves to feel. I began to fill the space with reminders of joy. I planted flowers along the small porch, roses and lilies, their blooms already nodding in the ocean breeze. I set up a little corner for painting, placing my brushes and palettes in neat rows. The scent of fresh coffee mingled with the salty air as I sipped slowly, letting the dawn seep into my veins. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of ownership, not just of the space, but of my emotions, my life. The cottage became more than a replacement for the house I had lost. It became a symbol of resilience. I knew that even though the beach house was gone, the memories remained with me. And now, I had the freedom to create new ones without fear of betrayal, shadowing every moment. Each evening, I would watch the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, reminding me that endings often bring the promise of a new beginning. In that cottage, I found not just shelter, but a quiet sanctuary for my spirit. Months passed, and one afternoon, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. There stood Victor, his face etched with fatigue and remorse. His eyes, once so confident, now seemed to carry the weight of the choices he had made. "Mum," he began, voice faltering. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I didn't understand what the beach house meant to you, and I lost myself." I looked at him, seeing not just the man who had betrayed me, but the child I had nurtured, the person he once was before life's pressures bent him in directions I hadn't foreseen. "It's okay, Victor," I said softly. "We all make mistakes, but we choose what we take from them." My words were calm, steady, filled with the strength I had gathered over the past months. He lowered his gaze, ashamed, and for a long moment we simply stood there, two hearts entwined by love, regret, and the fragile hope of forgiveness. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for him, but for me as well. I realized that forgiveness is not a gift we give to others. It is a liberation we grant ourselves, freeing our hearts from resentment and bitterness. Clara, who had stayed nearby to help me settle into my new home, watched silently from the porch. Her presence was a reminder that even amidst heartbreak, family could remain a source of comfort and healing. Forgiveness did not erase the past, nor did it undo the betrayal, but it allowed us to rebuild what was essential. Victor and I began to reconnect, slowly, carefully, like mending a delicate tapestry. We shared conversations over coffee, walks along the shoreline, and quiet evenings filled with reflection. Clara became a bridge between us, reminding Victor of the values he had once held, and reminding me that hope can flourish even in the aftermath of disappointment. Together, we laughed again, tentatively at first, and then with growing ease. I learned that relationships are never perfect, but they are resilient when nurtured with patience, honesty, and empathy. Trust can be fragile, but it can also be restored, piece by piece, if both parties are willing to embrace vulnerability and growth. The betrayal had burned something deep inside me, but from those ashes rose a strength I hadn't realized I possessed. I was no longer defined by possessions, by the loss of the beach house, or even by the mistakes of my children. I was defined by my courage, my resilience, and the choices I made to reclaim my life. Each morning, walking along the shoreline, feeling the sand between my toes and the sun on my face, I understood that life's hardships are not meant to destroy us. They are meant to teach us our own power. I had learned that even in the darkest moments, we can find light if we remain steadfast and true to ourselves. Life lesson. True peace comes from protecting your heart, not from what others choose to give or take. Happiness is not handed to you. It is built, defended, and nurtured by your own hands. As I sit in my cottage, listening to the waves, I know now that love, forgiveness, and resilience are stronger than betrayal, and that even when life breaks us, it also gives us the chance to rebuild, wiser and stronger than before. CTA for YouTube. If Harriet's journey touched your heart, like, comment, and subscribe for more real stories of family, love, and resilience.